Welcome to Tinkering with Gever. I'm Gever, and this is our show. Welcome to my workshop. Welcome to the end of my week. Welcome to the last episode of a crazy week where every episode has been on the wrong day. But here we are delivering Thursday's episode on Friday. What I have for you today is a plate full of leftovers. There are some great pieces of video that we shot earlier in the week for the various stories that we did, and they just didn't get used. So I thought, why not put them all on a plate and put them in the virtual microwave and heat them up. They'll be delicious, I promise. So without too much ado, there are some very interesting properties of circles, and I found a bunch of little pieces of wood that were cut into circles, and we can explore some interesting things just using these circles. So if I pack these circles as close as I can together in a little grid like this. Let me do one more column. Maybe we'll do 4 by 4. So there's 16 circles in a grid. Whoops, bonk. And that's kind of interesting, and it leaves these little diamond-shaped spaces in between. But there's also another way that circles like to be neighbors, and that is when they go a little bit closer together. Let's see if I can get this to... And now look at how much closer they are. That space in between the circles is much smaller. A good friend of mine in New York sent me a kind of amazing toy sculpture artifact called atomics. And what's amazing about atomics is that it's just based on one simple little idea about how circles, or in this case spheres, pack together. Let me unbox this. In here we see something kind of incredible, a piece of precision engineering to be sure. It is thousands of tiny little steel balls trapped in between two acrylic plates. One of the plates has a little rectangle, a perfect square actually, carved out of it that's the diameter of a steel ball. And you can see they flow around almost like water, but when they pack up near the edges, they start to do some interesting things. And if we look closely, we can see areas that exhibit two different kinds of packing. There's a square packing and a hexagonal packing. Here's a big area of hexagonal packing. And if I sort of gently shake it, I can kind of encourage them to make more and more of the hexagonal packing, but we see these fissures that run through it where they don't quite settle down. And my theory is that you could never get a perfect packing in here because the width of the tray is not an even multiple of balls. There's always a gap that's not perfect. And so we'll always get these beautiful patterns that show these fracture lines, sort of the way crystals have flaws in them. Well, when I saw this, and thank you, Bruce, for sending me this amazing thing, because I've played with it for hours, I think now, just watching what happens. And when you have it almost flat, the balls do this interesting thing where they repel each other electrostatically. That is, the tiny electrical charge on the ball repels the neighboring balls, and they spread out in these beautiful, even ways. Well, that inspired me to try and make one of my own, which I did on the laser cutter at our school. I made a little acrylic box, and I put glass beads in it. And sure enough, they do the same thing. And mine is not nearly as precisely built as the Atomics one, so it has all kinds of other issues. But we see some of that very same packing behavior with the fissures, with the fracture lines. But they don't repel each other. They don't do that beautiful little floating ball thing. And because the gap in mine is not exactly the diameter of the balls kind of create uneven packing when the tray is held vertically. So we get all sorts of other little artifacty packings. But I just wanted to show you that since we were talking about circles and how they pack. We can work that out with our compass as well. Let's try that. Well, that's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed our little collection of leftovers. That was a lot more little pieces than I expected once I sorted everything out, but that's the great thing about leftovers, just a lot of surprising flavors next to each other. I'm filming our goodbye sequence here out on the porch because I'm rearranging some things in the studio and I can't shoot in there anymore, but I think I remember how this goes. Just take a moment, remember to be nice to each other, take care of yourself, and we can survive this thing together, separate and apart. Remember, if you're feeling like you just can't take it anymore, the largest playground you'll ever find is right up here. Plenty of room to run and play. You can invent anything you need to make that the most exciting place you know. Until we see you on the next episode, this is the end.